Hi, subscribe to Life Stories so you don't miss new stories. Jim Burke's life is turned upside down when he discovers a shocking secret about his wife Carol, challenging their trust and future together. This story is a gripping exploration of love, betrayal, and the complexities of marital trust. My name is Jim Burks, and I'm 33 years old. I stand 6 feet tall and weigh about 190 pounds. Not fat, but I could stand to lose a few pounds, as I've had too many cheeseburgers and pizzas for lunch. If you asked my wife, she would say it is the beer that I love to drink. I've got sandy hair and always considered myself fairly good-looking. I had several girlfriends in college, but all that came to a stop when I met my future wife while I was a junior in college. We dated exclusively until I popped the question, and 6 months later, she became Mrs. Jim Burke. My lovely wife's name is Carol, and she is the same age as me, 33. She stands 5 feet 6 inches and weighs about 120 pounds. I think she is stunning and had several suitors in college and was never short of male attention. She lights up any room instantly and radiates energy. Her bubbly personality is admired by everyone. I thought we were the perfect match, and we enjoy our time together. However, the only problem is we don't see each other enough to get all the time we need. I'm a systems analyst for a large company, while Carol is a registered nurse on the orthopedic ward of a large hospital in Dallas. I typically work 8-hour days, 5 days a week, although some days I have to stay late if I'm working on difficult or time-related problems. So because of our work hours, we really only see each other on the weekends. When Carol works the day shift, we see each other at night, but she is always so exhausted that she is in bed by 9, shortly after arriving home. We try to make up for a lack of sex on the weekend. We often discuss fantasies, and both agree that fantasies need to be just fantasies. Carol was all I needed, and she assured me that I was the love of her life. I have no tolerance for cheaters, and she knows my feelings on infidelity. Simply put, I would not tolerate it. A role works 12-hour days a week, Monday through Thursday, and alternates shifts every 4 weeks. The shift is usually 7/7, either during the day or overnight. There is also a turnover period, which since she started in orthopedics takes about an hour. So with the drive home, she usually comes in around 8:30 both morning and night. I have asked for the past 2 years for her to get a day job, but she likes what she does and didn't want to change jobs, so we just put up with her unsociable hours. When we first got married, we both had student loans, and agreed they should be paid off before we started a family. 2 years ago, we paid off our loans and decided to put off having children until we were fairly comfortably settled into a nice home and neighborhood. We reached that goal 2 years ago and agreed that the time was right for Carol to get pregnant, except she didn't. Today was Monday, and I left work early thinking I was coming down with the flu. I texted my wife to tell her I was going home sick and asked her what meds to take. She replied, "To my flu, and it's in a container of meds in the second drawer under her vanity unit in our bathroom." I just texted back, "Okay." Upon arriving at home, I went into our master bath to look for her meds and found something else instead. I searched the drawer she indicated and found nothing that said Tamiflu. I opened the top drawer and, in the back, I found the flu meds and also found a foil pack of contraceptive pills. She had already taken the one marked for today. I was totally shell-shocked. She had promised me that she had gone off the pill well over 2 years ago. We had been trying without luck for the past 2 years. My wife just said we were unlucky with our work schedules, and sooner or later, our timetables would coincide with her fertile period. As past spring, I decided enough was enough, and we were both tested. After numerous tests, our doctor declared there was nothing wrong with either of us. I stared at the foil pack of pills and wondered if it was just an old package, but realized the days the pills had been popped corresponded to the month, and the correct pill for today had already been popped out. Today was Monday. The 17th and 17 pills had been popped, including today. The expiration date was 3 years in the future, so they must have been refilled recently. Simultaneously, I ran several different scenarios through my mind. Did Carol really want a family? Was she having some type of clandestine affair? Was there a health issue with her I wasn't aware of? Why had she been lying to me? Our bodies weren't getting any younger, and the longer we put off having a family, the harder it would be. How would I approach her? I took the Tamiflu and disappeared to bed. The next thing I knew, Carol was shaking me awake, asking how I was feeling and if I needed anything. I replied, "I'm feeling better and no, I don't need anything." I was actually feeling hurt that she wasn't sharing something with me, but didn't say anything. I watched her as she obviously thought I had passed out again and undressed to take a shower. I noticed that parts of her body looked red. Suddenly, I understood she must be having an affair. After the turnover before coming home when she worked on a different ward, the turnover only took less than 10 minutes. Why should it now take an hour? She didn't close the bathroom door, and I moved over to where I could watch her reflection in a full-length mirror in the bathroom. I thought she spent an ungodly amount of time getting clean. Was this usual? I had no clue, as I had actually never watched her before. Carol had undressed in her bedroom, and her clothes lay where she had dropped them. I picked up her panties, and yes, they were still damp. I returned her panties underneath her scrubs and got back in bed. I was angry beyond words. Up to that point in my life, I thought everything was perfect. No, I wasn't so sure. Just around me, Carol acted like the perfect wife. However, I realized there must be a side I wasn't aware of. I needed more information. She returned to the bedroom from her shower and got in bed with me. I was never in bed at this time of the night. Carol didn't even make an effort to hold or comfort me, but stayed on her side. She was long gone before I got up the next morning. I called in sick, claiming I had the flu. I had a ton of sick leave and needed time off to figure out what to do. One of my best friends from college had become a lawyer, so I called him asking for advice. I soon found out that Texas is a no-fault state, and since we didn't have children, we only had to split our belongings 50-50. The biggest thing was our house, which had accumulated some equity that would have to be sold, and the proceeds split. My friend did agree to represent me if I decided to file. He assured me it was a slam dunk. That evening at 7, I parked near Carol's car to follow her. We both have iPhones, and I checked her location with my Find My Phone app and decided she was still in the orthopedic ward. After 10 minutes, I could tell she was on the move, so I phoned orthopedics asking to talk to her, but was advised her shift was over and she had left for the day. I realized she'd been lying to me about the turnover period, which really did only take 10 minutes or less. I continued to watch the app on my phone and realized the blue dot had stopped in an area I was not familiar with, but still within the hospital complex. I got out of my car and decided to locate her phone. This is not as easy as it sounds. I found the location, but not the right floor. Finally, after at least 30 minutes, I found myself outside one of the rooms used by doctors for rest periods when they work long shifts. I could hear noises of lovemaking inside. I needed to hide so I could see who exited the room and managed to find an open janitor's closet about 50 feet away. About 20 minutes later, Carol came out of the room and walked toward the parking garage. A few minutes later, a man came out, and while he was locking the door, I approached him and asked for directions, which he graciously provided. He was several inches taller than me and looked like a Greek god. I looked at his name badge and got his name, Dr. David Baker. I needed a plan. I called my boss at home and explained that, yes, I had the flu, but an urgent personal family problem had come up and I needed to take some personal time to deal with it. He understood, as he had been caught up himself in a nasty divorce the year before. He said to take all the time I needed but keep him informed so he could cover for me. Executions have to take iteration. I then called my friend, the lawyer Bruce, and told him I wanted Carol served as she left the hospital after her shift on Thursday night. He said he could arrange it and asked if he could help with anything else. Did I have any plans once I left her? Did I have a place to go? I was trying to deal with things as they arose, and I admitted I hadn't thought that far. He told me to come to his office the first thing the next morning. Bruce had done this several times, and he had a checklist of things for me to do. He even had a list of hotels with reasonable weekly rates. It took that secret importance. I had several things to do, starting with contacting a moving firm to schedule a small pack-out the next morning. XHDs. I had planned to just put my things in storage until I could find a more permanent place to live. The next stop was the bank, where I withdrew $50 from all of our accounts and canceled our credit cards. I re-established accounts in my name only and ordered new credit cards. Then I called and canceled her cell phone, effective at midnight after being served that evening. I was in my computer room, saving files that I might need in the next few weeks, when Carol arrived home, spot on time at 8:30. Exchanged greetings, and then she went to shower and go to bed. Oh, I also got in bed early. Well, early for me, as I had a busy day ahead of me. Carol never acknowledged me getting into bed. I had totally missed how cold she had become. The next morning, Carol was out of the house early, and the movers arrived promptly at 8. I had a list of things to take with me and had post-its on everything to be packed. I had my car packed with suitcases and computer equipment that I would need for work when the movers finished at noon. I went out and bought a single black rose because it symbolizes death and passing away. It also indicates a major change or upheaval in the future. In that sense, the black rose also means the death of old habits and the old order. In this case, it meant the death of our marriage. I placed it in the center of our kitchen table and wrote a short note. Carol, if you remember on Monday, I called to tell you I was sick and going home. You told me to take Tamiflu and where to find it. However, it wasn't in your second vanity drawer. It was in the top drawer next to your birth control pills. Suddenly, several pieces of a large puzzle just came together. You weren't even trying to have a baby because you have been having a 2-year affair with the doctor at work. I guess your affair with the doctor is over now. Your affair with Dr. David Baker was more important than our marriage, and I realized this has been ongoing since you were transferred to orthopedics. So many lies. How could you? I thought we had a great marriage and trusted each other completely. I thought you loved me, and now you have broken my heart. Surely you must have known that when, not if, I found out, our marriage would be over. Guess what? Texas is a no-fault state, so I don't need evidence of your infidelity, which incidentally would have been very easy to obtain. I have split our accounts and taken what things I want from the house. Have you discovered your cell phone and credit cards may not work, by the way? Find a place to move, as I will list the house in 60 days, and anything left inside will go to Goodwill. You are now free to do whatever you want. I bet the best is that he is married and has a family, doesn't he? You must realize his wife will find out. What will the hospital say? Do you remember me saying I will not tolerate infidelity? I'm just preparing you for what might happen down the road. No longer your husband, Jim. P.S. Here is my wedding band. These exceptions, I no longer have a use for it, so I left the paper with the ring and rose on top of the table and left the house. Final update, I checked into one of the weekly rate hotels and waited. Carol was served by an off-duty sheriff's deputy who worked for Frank during his off-duty time. His specialty was serving. Apparently, she became hysterical and fainted. The doctor had to come out of his room in his underwear to attend to her. She called about an hour later, angry and wanting to know why I was serving her with a divorce action. I asked why she would even ask such a stupid question. I told her she had been cheating on me since going to orthopedics, which had been over 2 years ago. She asked when I discovered her affair, and I told her this past Monday when I was looking for Tamiflu. I found her birth control pills. I heard her sigh over the phone. After that, it was easy to figure it all out. I disconnected the phone call. Apparently, she had not read my letter. I didn't get much sleep but decided to go into work the next day. I found a mountain of work that had been piling up. I had nowhere to go or nobody to go home to, so I started working 16-hour days, 7 days a week. Bruce and I talked often, and one day I asked him if the doctor was married, and if so, was there a way to let the wife know? He would look into it. Miss Carol was fighting the divorce action. I had not seen or heard from her, but her lawyer was in contact with Bruce. the date for a hearing was approaching, and I found myself in the same room with her, although she would not look at me. I wore a suit with a black rose in the lapel. The judge was not friendly and disliked divorce cases. Carol wanted us to go to counseling, and Bruce asked what was the point of that since she had been having an affair for over 2 years. She'd been having a long, ongoing affair. I straight out told the judge I would not attend any counseling the court ordered. I didn't care if he put me in jail. As far as I was concerned, my wife was a cheating, deceitful bitch, and I did not want to even be in the same room as her. I told the judge I had done nothing wrong, and it was Carol who had broken our wedding vows, which resulted in the divorce action. Send her to counseling as she was the one that needed it. I was quickly found in contempt of court and fined. I didn't care. I was furious, and Bruce had to lead me out of court before saying something that would put me behind bars. He reminded me that it was just a hearing. I asked Bruce to find out if Carol was still seeing the doctor. I wanted to do some serious harm. He hired a PI who installed a video cam in the doctor's rest quarters and filmed them after work. There was no kissing or touching. They were just sex buddies. That we people at communications, I asked Bruce if the hospital could be held accountable now that we had video evidence. He didn't think we could use the video in court, but certainly, the video, if leaked from an anonymous source, would bring the hospital into disrepute and would garner unwanted publicity. He advised me to wait until the divorce was finalized, then send the video to the hospital administrators, the doctor's wife and her friends and family. The day of the divorce finally arrived, and the judge ruled in favor of divorce without counseling. He said there had been too much bad blood, and he felt our marriage was unrepairable, so the divorce was granted. The next day, the video was leaked from an anonymous source, totally unconnected to me. But the shit hit the fan quickly. Carol called me and asked me why I did all that. I told her there was no proof that I leaked the video, however, I would like to thank whoever did. I also reminded her that I would not tolerate being a cuckold, and she did it in my face and even continued after I filed for divorce. She broke up 2 marriages. I said there may be worse to come, and she said, how could it get any worse? Got worse when our family and friends reacted to the video. Everyone sided with me, and nobody had good words for Carol. Everyone thought we had such a perfect marriage. That was 3 years ago, and I haven't seen or heard from Carol since. She cheated and got burnt badly. I have remarried to a lovely woman, and we have a year-old daughter. My new wife wants a big family and plans to be a stay-at-home mom. This is what I always wanted. Epilogue. If you are wondering what happened to Carol and David, well, they had a hard life. Carol tried for almost a year to talk to me. I'm not sure why she tried. I had not given her any opportunity for reconciliation. David left her and she had to move back in with her parents. They were both ostracized by their friends and peers. It was a sad ending for them. Any opportunity for reconciliation. Both David and Carol were both unceremoniously fired. David's wife then filed for divorce. Carol could have dealt with that, but then I had the video sent out to our friends and family. That was the last blow for her. So she started considering moving away from Dallas to make a fresh start. If Carol had not tried to contest the divorce, she might not have lost her job. Earl didn't want a divorce, so she asked for counseling, but I got very angry, and she lost it in court. Her second mistake was continuing to see David and having sex. I was very clever to wait until our divorce was finalized before sending out the video. If I had sent the video out before our divorce, and she was fired, then I would have had to pay alimony. Finally, Carol, feeling totally ashamed and humiliated, moved to Oklahoma City and found a job as a nurse in a doctor's office. Maybe she's trying to put her life back together, and I hope she has learned her lesson. But the story of Jim and Carol poignantly illustrates the destructive power of secrets in a marriage. It serves as a stark reminder of the importance of honesty in communication and relationships, showcasing how easily trust can be broken and the challenging path to healing or resolution. Story 2. Following his wife on one of her business trips, the husband discovers a shocking truth, casting doubt on everything he believed in. And he confronted with deception and betrayal. He faces a decision that will change his life forever. I worked as an editor for a news portal, and my wife Rachel was a journalist. I was always in the know about the latest events. Every piece of breaking news had to be published as quickly as possible to be among the first sources and gain a larger audience. It dealt with routine work, where scandals, intrigues, and investigations had become a mundane part of my life. I delved into it constantly and no longer saw anything extraordinary, but at least I didn't personally interact with these popular figures. Many people led disgustingly deceptive lives for show, all for the sake of popularity, but in reality they were different, and this other side was often highlighted in the news to shock readers. It was inconsequential to me. I simply knew how to articulate thoughts well in text and had a decent understanding of the craft, and I was well paid. So, I had no complaints. My wife met various people and interviewed them. They weren't presidents or oil magnates, but ordinary people with unusual stories. My wife enjoyed communicating and could ask the right questions to get interesting answers. We lived in a private house not far from a pine forest. It was a beautiful place. Here, one could escape from the routine of work, city noise, and other exhausting factors. I didn't buy this house. Besides, I didn't have that kind of money. My father gave me this house as a gift. He was a very successful person involved in real estate, and he managed to give me a house when Rachel and I had our daughter, Kayla. Now Kayla was 6 years old. We took her to school and then went to our workplaces. There was nothing unusual about us. I would say we led a fairly measured life. We successfully fulfilled our work duties, raised our daughter, and managed household chores. Everything was fine. I love my wife and daughter immensely. The family routine didn't frighten me. That to spice things up, we organized various family days. We visited zoos, rode on attractions, strolled in the park, and went out into nature. We had many entertainments that distracted us from the mundane and brought joy. And I thought it would always be like that. But our relationship began to grow stale. I noticed it. It seemed that ordinariness started to devour all the romance we had, I remember when Rachel went to interview Patrick. Patrick was an old man who'd spent his whole life trying to win the lottery and only in old age became a millionaire. I couldn't understand what could be interesting about an old fool who spent his whole life searching for an elusive prize, which he miraculously won, considering he could have spent everything up. Useless tickets until his death. Rachel decided to interview him to learn more about this man. And this time, she had a new videographer, Jeremy. I didn't like Jeremy right away when I first saw him. A cheeky redhead who constantly circled around my wife. Yes, it was his job to film what my wife was doing. But he was quite intrusive. I had never been jealous before. But with Jeremy's appearance, I began to feel jealous of my wife. I didn't even want to let her go to interview old Patrick. The road was not close, and Jeremy and Rachel would be alone together the entire way. This angered me a lot because this jerk constantly tried to please my wife, fetching her coffee, touching her. Isn't something obvious that warranted a punch, but his whole manner of communication infuriated me. I was afraid to imagine how this slippery bastard would be hitting on my wife when they were alone. Then other unpleasant incidents began. Rachel started staying late at work. She said she had more work due to their boss loading her with additional tasks, and she had to stay late to get the work done. Plus, all this disrupted our family happiness. At first, I tried to push away bad thoughts, believed simple explanations that Rachel loved only me, and she genuinely had to stay late at work. But then it got worse. Rachel started going on business trips for several days. It became challenging for me to manage work and take care of Kayla alone. Rachel, how's work going? It's all good, Michael. Don't you want to tell me anything else? Michael, nothing interesting is happening to me. Everything's usual, interviewing people. As now, I have to travel farther to get the job done. Rachel, I'm worried. You're not telling me something? You used to discuss everything with me, and now we're rarely together. I feel like something is happening. Michael, I agree with you. But lately, a lot has been piled on me, but I ask you to endure. You're a real hero, taking on a lot of household and taking care of Kayla. It confirms that I made the right choice in marrying a real man. I'm trying to get back to a normal life, but my boss has gone completely insane. He loaded all the employees with work because our budget has become much smaller. And to ensure we all get paid, we need to do more work. I don't like it either, but it's necessary. I'm thinking about it too. Maybe I'll have to change jobs because it stresses me out so much. Rachel, is it really all because of work? What are you implying? You know, I don't like this Jeremy. He's like a persistent fly, constantly hovering around you. And what annoys me even more is that he spends much more time with you than I do. Michael, enough already. You don't need to worry about Jeremy. He's not hinting on me. And by the way, he's gay. So I'm definitely not his type. Yes, we spend a lot of time together. But he's my videographer. He constantly films my interviews. And there's not the slightest hint of what you suspect. So I ask you, stop your silly suspicions. I love only you, and I don't need anyone else. I never suspected that Jeremy was of a non-traditional orientation. This greatly surprised and confused me. He didn't seem like someone who would be into guys. Although, how could I know as I didn't have such acquaintances? At first, I seemed to calm down. I wanted to believe my wife and forced myself not to think about it anymore. I wanted to put an end to it, to reaffirm my love and trust of my wife. Everything was fine with us, and my suspicions were baseless. But it's not so easy to shake off such thoughts. The feeling that something might not be as it seems never left me. What if they didn't know something after all? What if it's deception? These thoughts prevented me from living normally. The thoughts grew in my head because Rachel continued to rarely show up at home. I eagerly awaited each time, hoping that Rachel would return from her business trip, and our family would spend time together as it used to be. Then we would have a romantic evening alone with Rachel, but time and again, I faced a wall of indifference. Rachel arrived, looking tired and indifferent. Even if we spent time together as a family, it seemed like she was forced to do so, and as for intimate relations with her, I won't even mention. She was as cold as ice. I was tired of enduring these constant disappointments. I didn't understand what was happening. Rachel didn't explain anything and remained unresponsive. One day, while browsing the internet, a thought crossed my mind to find Jeremy on social media, as I now questioned Rachel's words. And I found him on the internet. There was no hint of his non-traditional orientation on his profile. His page mentioned a link to a dating site. I went to that site and found his profile there. Only ladies, I look forward to your messages. This was Jeremy's status on that site. It was clear that he was looking for easygoing female companionship for sex. There was no talk of love for men. And I didn't think it was just a facade to hide his true nature. He was a regular womanizer who wouldn't miss a single opportunity, and he clearly set his eyes on my wife. This infuriated me deeply. I just didn't know what to do with all this anger. I wanted to find this bastard and man to man, explain to him that here I am the rightful husband and he's nobody. But when my anger subsided a bit, the thought crept into my mind. Why was Rachel lying to me? Could she secretly be cheating on me with this scoundrel? Everything added up, and it was very convenient for her. They were constantly on the road together. They could quietly have sex away from prying eyes. And Rachel stopped having sex with me. But all her excuses were already ridiculous. I needed to put an end to this. I had to expose Rachel. And I also wanted to express everything to her boss, who constantly overloaded her with work, making her spend even more time with this scoundrel. I went to Rachel's office to have a serious talk with her boss. But here I was simply dumbfounded. Rachel not only wasn't overloaded with work, but she was actually working part-time and rarely appeared in the office. She had essentially half the workload compared to before. I was completely thrown off. What was happening around me? It was all just a continuous lie. I didn't know what to do with all this, but a decision had to be made. I decided to hold back my emotions, wait for Rachel, and then follow her when she went on her so-called business trip. Up all this time I thought, how could she blatantly lie to me? It simply didn't make sense to me. That was hard for me to believe that my wife was lying to me, but everything boiled down to just that. Rachel arrived and behaved casually, continuing to lie to me and reject all my suggestions to spend time together or even have a normal conversation. She said my roof was going off, and she wasn't going to participate in this nonsense. She lied and hoped I would believe it all again, but I could barely contain myself from throwing something heavy at her. Another scandal would not yield any results. It was a stage already past. Rachel stubbornly stood her ground. Since she was so confident in what she said, her words needed to be verified. And here I was, finally, waiting for the moment when Rachel was getting ready for her business trip. She didn't really tell me where exactly she was going. She mentioned having a lot to do, and that it would take too long to explain where she would be going, as she had to visit several places and she didn't have time for those explanations right now. I calmly let her go. As soon as Rachel left the house, I quickly gathered myself and followed her. I could easily keep an eye on her without worrying about the time, as I had previously taken her daughter to visit my parents. I saw Rachel get into a taxi and drive away. It was quite strange, because Jeremy usually picked her up by car. Although now everything seemed less surprising, she was unlikely heading somewhere for work. I started my car and caught up with them on the road. Though it turned out we weren't heading to the train station or the airport. Instead, we entered a small suburb with private houses. The taxi turned into a fairly remote area and pulled up to a rather large house. I didn't know who lived here, but I assumed that if this house didn't belong to Jeremy, he might be renting it for his dirty affairs. Rachel got out of the car. She pressed the doorbell and the gate opened automatically, closing immediately behind her. The fence here was quite high, making it challenging to get inside. I parked my car near the fence in the most inconspicuous place. Then I climbed onto the roof of the car and managed to get over the fence. Next, I approached the house. I turned the handle and the door opened. I walked inside and began to look for Rachel. I heard strange sounds. It seemed like the moans of an old man dying and in need of help. I rushed to the source of those disgusting sounds. I opened another door and was stunned by what I saw. That wasn't Jeremy. It was indeed an old man, and he wasn't groaning from dying. It was that old bastard Patrick. He was sitting on the couch with his pants down, and Rachel, half undressed, was on her knees. The sight was simply dreadful. I shouted, shaking with anger. I grabbed a chair and struck the old bastard in the face with all my might. Grandpa flew over the couch from the impact. He tried to get up, but immediately received a kick between the legs. The bastard writhed in pain on the floor. "You bitch! How could you? Are you screwing this stinking grandpa? Are you licking his old genitals? What a vile creature you are." I had many scenarios in my mind, but for this, you're just scum, Michael. "How did you get here?" "Shut up, you creature, wretched scum. You lied to me for this. Did Grandpa decide to share his pension with you? This or his lottery winnings?" "Michael, wait. I don't know how to explain. It's awful. I understand it's awful. But I don't know how it happened. We just talked. I met him again. We had a drink. Okay, it's all him. I couldn't stop afterward. That's it. I've had enough. I don't need your explanations anymore. I don't want to know anything else. Maybe I should just kill both of you right here, but I don't want to dirty my hands with such filth. I'm filing for divorce. You're nobody to me anymore. And you won't see our daughter again, scum. Rachel, to put it mildly, looked awful around the same time. A horrific news story emerged about her connection with the old man, Christian. Someone from her colleagues had caught Rachel with Patrick. Disturbing photos and videos surfaced on the internet, which was just another sensation that someone wanted to capitalize on. Rachel lost her parental rights shortly after. She caused a rampage in her workplace, but this stunt cost her life. In a fit of rage, she stumbled, breaking a window in the process. She didn't fall out of the window, but her neck landed on a sharp shard of glass, cutting it. I learned that the old man, Patrick, couldn't continue his life either. He became a victim of a brutal robbery and was found dead in a dumpster near his own home. All this horror made me reassess my life. I quit my job and started writing books. It was a bold decision, and I wouldn't have been able to make it earlier. But now I decided to start a new life from scratch. I couldn't deal with those ugly news stories anymore. And I was right. My first book became a bestseller. I continued my work, taking care of my daughter. The fate of a lonely writer did not await me, because I met Sarah. We met at a writer's gathering and had a heartfelt conversation. Sarah wasn't a writer. She just came to support her friend. We bumped into each other near the snack table. The unexpected encounter and pleasant conversation laid the groundwork for our future meetings. We fell in love and now live together. My daughter also grew fond of Sarah, and we began a happy family life. The story is a concise exploration of betrayal and self-discovery. A news editor's stable life unravels when he discovers his wife's infidelity, leading to a profound questioning of trust and a transformative personal journey. It highlights the fragility of relationships and the resilience needed to navigate life-changing revelations.